collect? Magic the Gathering? Awesome. Pokemon? Awesome.
Star Wars.
Star Wars, of course.
Comics,
Comics? What types of comics? What characters?
Spider-Man, X-Men, and Avengers.
Nice. What else? Star Wars and Firefly, sweet. What? You got Green Lantern, right? You saw the poster. Anybody else? What do you got?
Funko Pops.
Pops. I was waiting for somebody to say Pops. That's a huge. I've got some Pops. I've got the Doctor Strange Pops, and I bought a few cute ones for the wife. But some people are just really obsessive about the Funko stuff. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about some of the things that I've learned over the past 30 years collecting, and some of the pitfalls that you run into, especially when you're doing purchases online, and some of the other things, and you end up, kind of getting misrepresented and buying something you don't think you were buying, and end up wasting your money on it, and try to be a more educated collector so you end up with a better collection in the long run. So for me, I started out, I was born in 1970, and back then it was Star Wars and it was Battlestar Galactica for me, and it was trading cards. Back when the gum used to come in the cards, right? So those were some of the first things that I actually collected. Then as time went on, I got into my early 20s, that's really when, besides Star Wars and that, I was into the horror comics when I was a kid. I didn't get into kind of the Marvel and the DC stuff until I was a little bit older and into my 20s. But a couple of the characters that really resonated with me were Green Lantern, Iron Man, and Doctor Strange, because they weren't just the generic superpower type characters. One was an alien ring that, fought, and I spent many years in the Marines, and my job now is I'm a cop, and I do a lot of public service stuff. So just the whole Green Lantern Corps thing just kind of resonated with the type of person I was. But I've always been a huge fantasy guy, so Doctor Strange was right up my alley. And a lot of people don't understand or realize that Doctor Strange is one of the original Marvel characters. He's one of the oldest ones. He was created back in 1963, 64, within a couple years of Spider-Man and Hulk and some of those other mainstays. So he's definitely one of the oldest characters out there. The movie came out, finally. Anybody actually see the pilot, the 1970s Doctor Strange pilot that they made for TV? It was horrible. You YouTube it. I don't even recommend watching it on YouTube, because that's 10 minutes you'll never get back watching some of that stuff. But I had to add it to my collection. I had to watch it, and I had to see it. So I was really leery when the movie was going to come out, because this is a character they could really mess up in the movie, just because of his magical abilities and what he does and stuff like that. I was very happily surprised. I thought the movie turned out really well. It could have went crazy off to the side. But for me and many other collectors, where's our collection? It's packed up in boxes in the basement or the closet, right? It's crazy. For decades, for years and years and years, I'd buy something, I'd put it in a box, and I'd put it in the basement. And only a few things I'd sit out on my desk and actually enjoy. So when the movie was coming out, I decided, you know what, let me pull all my crap out, let me spread it out and kind of see what I got. And I was just kind of shocked with the stuff I amassed over the past, 30 years, just specifically Doctor Strange stuff. So this is my library room in my house, and this stuff stretched all the way around the room. And I'm like, you know what, I spent all this money on this stuff, I need to get it out and I need to enjoy it. Not only that, if I'm not going to accidentally start buying duplicates, I need to update my lists and what I bought and what versions of what I have. Then I decided, you know what, maybe I should just put it on the internet and other people could use it as a reference because the collection was so large. And I'll give you a link at the end for my website. It's the Doctor Strange Archive, and I've got almost everything in my collection photographed, documented, some history behind it, because I do a lot of research on the items and stuff like that. So it went basically from packed away in the basement. I'm a very everything has its place kind of guy, so even though it was in the basement, it was all in its boxes and stuff, to just looking at the sheer mass of stuff I had, it's like, you know what, if we're going to collect this stuff, we need to enjoy it. We need to pull at least some of it out. We all don't have, well, most of us don't have the houses or the space where we can display everything that we've got. I definitely don't. But I got a couple display cabinets, I got some stuff framed, some of the art framed, and I can rotate stuff in and out, and we can actually enjoy it from time to time, every time, because that's my, the main room where my collection is where my desk is, and that's where I drop off my bag when I come home from work every day. So I get to see everything, I get to see it each day. So how do we get there? I like to term it as 4 or 5 different levels of collectors. Casual collector. How many Pops do you have?
Oh, shoot.
Okay, he doesn't know how many he has. So do you think we call him a casual collector? Probably not. He's probably a little bit higher up here. And the reason why we talk about casual, moderate, hardcore, and the completionist is usually this kind of determines how much money you're spending on this stuff. How many of these things do you buy? Do you just like the Funko Pops, but you just buy the horror ones, and you maybe have a dozen or 15 of them, but you're a horror kind of guy, and maybe you want to have Doug Bradley sign the Pinhead one day at a convention or something like that? Perfectly fine. It's a great collection, just having, you know, a couple highlighted really nice items. Me, on the other hand, I'm what you call a completionist. I have a hard time not buying something I see Doctor Strange's face on. And there are multiple versions of statues and all sorts of other things, and I get every version of the statue and every version of that stuff. So throughout the year, I end up spending a pretty decent amount of money on a lot of this stuff. But when we talk a little bit later, I'll talk about how we can rein that back and not, you know, lose control of our spending and stuff like that, even though it's almost an addiction when you collect this stuff. So you're laughing. So do you have, you got a story over there, I can tell. No, right? I actually do, and we have a little section on budgeting and stuff like that, but I do not only my normal day-to-day job, I teach it from, like I said, the Chicagoland area, so I teach for the College of DuPage up there from time to time, and I teach for another training organization, and I do some other work for another organization. So that extra money that I bring in is what I set aside for stuff like this. So this isn't coming out of food money. This isn't coming out of, you know, all that other type of stuff. So even though for me it is an obsession and probably pretty close to an addiction, it doesn't take control of my life like an addiction does. It doesn't affect the rest of my life. And we'll talk about a little bit about that in a minute. Two things that are up here on the slide, if you can't really see them. These are a couple of interesting Doctor Strange collectibles. These are actually backstage passes for Grateful Dead concerts. Back in the 90s, Marvel had a whole bunch of backstage passes for a whole bunch of different bands that were doing concerts, so a whole bunch of different Marvel characters got backstage passes. But when you're looking at this stuff, the reason why there's two of them up here is these are two Grateful Dead concerts, two separate concerts. But when you're looking at buying these on eBay or Amazon or at a convention like this, you need to pay attention to the specifics. The dates on here are for two separate dates. Are any of those dates special for any reason? Well, gotta get the light just right. This one is for September 15th of 1995. Jerry Garcia died 2 months before this concert. So these backstage passes were never actually issued. So which do you think would be cost you more, be more valuable? The concert that was canceled and never issued, or the standard issue pass? What do you think? Yeah, the canceled one. But when I did the research, I actually talked to the guy who owns the company that printed these passes back in the 90s. There was actually twice as many passes printed for that September concert. So as far as rarity goes, the one that was canceled, more of those passes were actually printed, but they weren't put into circulation like the other passes. So that's kind of a weird thing when you're trying to decide how much money you're going to spend on an item is, okay, is it rare? All right, if it is rare, are there any special conditions for it? Yeah, this was for a concert after Jerry Garcia died. That's awesome. And I've only seen two of these go up for auction, this one and one other one. So I'm pretty sure that they're not out there a whole lot. But as far as rarity goes, much less of the ones that the concert that actually went were actually printed. So much fewer of these actually went out there to the public. But since these weren't issued, you can't find any. So those are kind of some of the things you have to think about. So setting goals, short-term and long-term goals. If you're going to be a collector, if you're going to do let's say you're going to collect diamond statues, diamond select toy statues, you're going to collect 6-scale figures. Let's say you do the Star Wars 6-scale figures or whatever. They're making some immaculate things out there these days. Those things aren't very cheap, are they? No, they're not. So a lot of us probably aren't in the financial situation where we can go out and buy each and every one of them as they're constantly pushed out. So if you set some goals and say, okay, which ones are on pre-order, which ones do I know are coming out, and figure out which ones are most important to you. I would rather in the next 6 months have this statue and this statue, and then for the rest of the year till December, if I've got the money and the resources, I'll look at this statue or this statue. And what it really does is it helps you manage your money and how much money you spend. So when you come to a convention like this, if you've got a goal, like mine, this is a 1971 Third Eye blacklight poster in near mint condition. Marvel did a whole series of these through Third Eye. 3 of them were Doctor Strange, and they also made trading greeting cards and puzzles out of the same images or out of the same thing that were all blacklight. There's 2 other Doctor Strange ones. That's my goal for this year, is to try to acquire those 2 other Doctor Strange ones. That's my primary goal for this year. But I'm not paying an excruciating amount of money for them. They come up on eBay all the time. I'm not paying $550 a piece for the other 2 posters. This one in near mint condition, just because I was patient and I waited, I ended up picking it around for about $210, so half the price of what everybody else asks for the posters, just because you're being patient. You set those goals. I don't care if I get those 2 posters this month or next month. I just like to have them before the end of the year, so that's kind of where my focus kind of goes at. Budget. Budget is a huge thing. How much money can you spend on this stuff? How many in here are married? Live with a significant other? How many of them know how much you spend at these conventions? Well, if you come to the conventions, it's a little easier as a husband and wife. But how many of you go to shows and buy stuff on eBay and your spouse has no idea how much you spent on this stuff? Right? And it could create tension, it could create problems, because money is one of those big things in a relationship that causes relationships to go south, right? It's at the top of the list. So if you set a budget thinking that, okay, my long-term goals, I want those 2 posters. I don't want to pay any more than $300 for those 2 posters. So throughout the first 6 months of this year, I'm going to squirrel a little bit of money away, $20, $40 here, $20, $40 there, and it actually goes into a checkbox in my desk drawer. That way it's not a burden on me when I find that poster and I got to throw out $300 for that poster, and the wife freaks out, like, what are you spending $300 on a poster for? It's like, no, I've been putting $20 away every couple of weeks in the little thing here, and it's already set aside, and it makes things go that much easier. It's much less financial. I know people who buy things or collect things, not necessarily comics and Marvel type stuff, but they spend an excruciating amount of money on it to a point where their kids don't eat regularly. So it can become an addiction, and that's really what you want to try to avoid. You can still build a nice quality collection, but you just need to do it smartly. You need to figure out how I can attempt or how I can do those goals. Don't set up, 30 goals for the year. This isn't a seminar, how the 7 steps to be a better person or whatever it is. But if you do set a couple of those goals up where you kind of highlight, what are the couple things I want to acquire this year, those higher end things, to maybe finish out a series or a run or a collection, maybe Strange Tales, I'm missing Strange Tales 120 to 125, and I want to try to find those in the best condition I can.